Welcome to The Atypical View. I'm your host, Lauren Florio, a licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in autism, ADHD, and broader neurodiversity. As a fellow neurodivergent mind, I'm here to help us learn and spread awareness on all things mental health, as well as help us unlearn harmful stereotypes by providing psychoeducation rooted in research and lived experience rooted in my atypical view. The Atypical View is obviously this podcast, but it's also my private practice where I provide therapy to clients here in California with me and provide neurodiverse coaching to others worldwide. So, without further ado, let's jump into the Atypical View. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode. In a previous episode, I talked about CBT and how I didn't feel like it quite met the mark for neurodivergent folks when it comes to mental health care. Cognitive behavioral therapy focuses heavily on logic and thought-based strategies. You're welcome to go back and hear my understanding in that previous episode if you haven't heard it already. But if you have, I want to focus today on where I feel like it's counterpart, it's opposite, and a modality that I really value and I think that is worth explaining about in an episode today. I may have mentioned a little bit about somatic therapy in the past, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into our first segment, our education portion of today's episode. Somatic approaches focuses on connection between the body and mind. Somatic literally translates to soma equals body. So it's a modality focused on the body. It helps people notice and work with sensations, movement, and helps their nervous system regulate. For neurodivergent individuals, especially late diagnosed folks or those with trauma histories, or even ADHDers, somatic practices are genuinely transformative. I think that somatics work for neurodivergence because neurodivergent people are more likely to experience poor interoception, dissociation, and alexithymia. Interoception is the body's difficulty in sensing natural cues, things like hunger, fullness, needing to use the restroom, being tired. Those are all pieces of interoception. And those cues tend to get either the volume turned down really low or silenced altogether to the point where we're far past our point of hunger. It's been, instead of a couple hours since our last meal, it's been, we didn't eat all day, right? You can regulate an emotional problem within your nervous system, but you cannot regulate a lack of sleep. You cannot regulate a lack of food. My point is you can't regulate a lack of your body's non-negotiables. So if we have poor interoception, we are likely already dysregulated from struggling to meet our body's basic needs. Dissociation, I've talked about before. Dissociation is disconnecting from our body or even our environment when we are under some type of stress. Now, the more trauma that we've experienced, the more likely we are to have experienced dissociation. I also believe that autism and trauma are heavily connected. Almost every single person I've ever met who is autistic has some type of trauma experience. Different types of trauma can cause dissociation. When our body starts to dissociate, I'd like to explain it as like a homeostasis. Homeostasis is when our body wants to stay in stasis. It wants to stay still. It wants to stay the same for the sake of ease and taking care of the system. So this is why we have our 98.6 kind of temperature. So most of the time we are right around that temperature. Our body's trying to get us back there because that's where our system functions best at. I think of dissociation as a piece of homeostasis for people who have had a lot of trauma or a lot of overwhelm in their life, whatever it might be. And so our body naturally wants to go back to a certain level of dissociation. And dissociation is a spectrum. So we see the early side of that is maybe that autopilot where we're just brain's a little bit off. We're just going from one task to another. We don't really remember what we did that day. We get up and go to the bathroom without thinking. We go to the fridge without thinking. We're just mindlessly going about our day. In a routine, we're not thinking twice about, we're not being intentional about our choices. And The stronger side of the spectrum is definitely that like out of body experience. Some people talk about truly like looking down at themselves as like their soul disconnected from their body. Like they're so disconnected that they feel like they are hovering over themselves. Probably the furthest on this scale is DID, dissociative identity disorder. This is a lot more rare and usually requires a pretty significant amount of trauma in childhood, which causes splitting in their identity and can cause memory loss. Where you're at on that dissociation spectrum is going to be different for every person. Just because we are struggling with dissociation doesn't mean we don't have moments of presence, of mindfulness. You go and have a conversation with a friend and feel connected and laugh and feel present in the moment. You feel the wind on your skin, but then you end up back at home and eventually you're back in that like pattern. The good news is that the more frequently we break that up with a moment of presence in the body, being grounded in our body, and we can do this through somatic practices, which I'll talk about. The more we do that, the more we break it up, the more we can actually shift our body's need for it. So our body eventually will start to move the dial. We want to practice disrupting that pattern as much as possible to start to move the dial closer and closer and closer to being present throughout our day. To be present is to be aware of our senses, so our five senses. To be grounded, to do a grounding exercise usually requires or includes our five senses. I'll give you a walkthrough of what that looks like at the end of today's episode. But for now, when we aren't really paying attention to what we feel, what we hear, etc., we are more likely to enter that dissociation versus if we're really being mindful about how things taste and smell and we touch something and really enjoy the fabric of it or whatever it is. We're mindful of our sensory experience. It can help us be more grounded. Now, obviously, for people with sensory issues, being intentional about your senses can sometimes be overwhelming because we start dissociating because we're in a world where lights are too bright, where textures on our skin are too rough or too itchy, where foods have awful textures or intense smells and tastes. And there's all of these little disruptions that don't actually bother the typical mind. But for us, and especially if we want to appear normative or if we have been trained to appear normative, we pretend that these things aren't bothering us. And we can't actually stop the damage of these issues. If I have a sensitivity to a certain fabric, but I wear that fabric anyways because maybe I'm dissociated and I'm not getting my body's cues, or maybe I've been told that I need to do it because it's the normal thing to do. Unfortunately, we do see in like ABA practices for autistic people that they are trained to make eye contact or trained to do things just because they're normative, not because it actually benefits that person's nervous system, that autistic person's nervous system, instead of spreading awareness to be more comfortable with people who don't prefer eye contact or blah, blah, blah. Because these things, they don't harm anyone. It only harms the person who, if making eye contact is physically painful, then why would we force someone to be in pain just for our comfort? Getting a little off script, but point being is that it's a lot harder to ground ourselves in these sensory experience when we have sensory issues that we haven't learned to accommodate. For now, I'm going to just pause there. I know that that's a lot of information and hopefully it'll start to make sense and connect the dots as we move more into the somatic practice. But the last piece that I had mentioned earlier was alexithymia. Alexithymia is the struggle to essentially feel emotions in our body, to name the emotion we're feeling, to physically feel it, sense it, where it is in the body, where it shows up in the body. Alexithymia is a bit more complicated than this, but I feel like that's the most straightforward definition that I can give for it right now. It might be worth doing a whole episode on it down the road. Who knows? So these kind of key issues in neurodivergence, the interoception, dissociation, and alexithymia, somatic practices can directly support these challenges by guiding people back into their body in safe, gradual ways. And it can decrease a lot of these issues and even teach people how to learn their cues again, essentially. So we'll learn what cue is connected to emotions. So for example, if we pair If we spend enough time doing the work and notice that, oh, I'm feeling this tightness in my chest, and almost every time that I've done the work and I've noticed that tightness in my chest is usually tied to anxiety, I should probably check if I'm feeling anxious right now. And over time, it's a skill. We have to build that skill. So somatic work can do that. Through gentle awareness and embodying exercises, somatic work can help with improving the interoception by learning to read signals from the body and building trust with the body by responding to those signals, decreasing alexithymia by connecting emotions and physical sensations, kind of like I just mentioned. We reduce dissociation by interrupting the dissociative pattern, building safety in the body, pulling back the veil of dissociation, sitting in the discomfort, and learning to safely be present in uncomfortable feelings so that our body doesn't feel like we have to protect us. Throughout this, we're going to create deeper self-regulating patterns and learn to balance our emotions throughout the day. It is also just a healthy alternative to overthinking, like we talked about earlier. CBT is very focused in logic and building insight, critical thinking, and I don't feel like that is what autistic individuals typically need in their therapeutic space. I am not saying that talk therapy does not have benefits to autistic people or neurodivergent people. Neurodivergent people heavily benefit on what's called externalized processing. And external processing basically means that we need to do something outside of our brain, either on a journal, written down, speaking it out loud, talking to a friend even, is part of how we process our feelings, our emotions, our experiences, because when we do it in our head, we tend to end up in a cycle where we get stuck in and end up more analyzing than we do actually processing and moving forward. Or moving out of just focusing on this logic alone. I think somatics is so valuable for the neurodiverse community because it offers more than just symptom relief. It provides a pathway towards regulation, resilience, and self-discovery. Somatic work reminds us that healing doesn't just happen in the mind, it happens in our body too. I want to move into our next segment, which is the atypical view. It's my atypical view today, focusing on my lived experience around using somatic work. Now, I think how I ended up using it for myself and for therapy clients is probably a bit of a lengthy story, but to summarize, I obviously have been in mental health for a long time. So the idea of somatics or regulation tools are not new to me. So it was about exploring how to make what exists in the world, what tools exist in the world work for me, rather than to make me use the tools as are and hope that I see the outcome that other people see. Over time, this started with me developing a system of measuring my dysregulation every day. I would check in with my body, do some body scans, do some body work, and then based off of how I was feeling, I would practice a regulation tool. And it wasn't always a somatic tool, but inherently checking in with my body, doing a body scan, figuring out what sensations I was feeling, what cues maybe I hadn't been hearing that day, really slowing down and just taking a little bit of time to quiet your mind and sense what's happening. Over time, that skill alone can really build back up. It did for me, and it does for a lot of people. I think that it's helpful to have a guiding hand in the beginning because you don't really know what you're looking for if you've never experienced it. Over time, part of the somatic journey was doing body check-ins every day. I think I actually did have a therapist at one point who did some body scans with me, and that was really helpful. I started implementing those more and more without really knowing. That started breaking the disruption cycle. My body started giving me more information. Sometimes I wasn't ready for that information. I won't lie. Sometimes that information was overwhelming. I don't say this to scare anyone off from this journey, but essentially, if you are chronically dissociated and have all these issues that I've mentioned, the dissociation, the interoception issues, the alexithymia, when you do intentionally pull the dissociative veil, so to speak, back, you are going to basically witness all of the things that have been shoved down over time, all of the anxiety, the grief, the anger, the pain, whatever. it's going to be there still. It doesn't just go away with time. Time does not heal all. As much as I wish it as it did, time and processing does heal things, but it more so creates space for the things we've experienced, doesn't just make them go away. But especially time on its own does not heal anything. It just pushes it down. We have to face the things that have hurt us in our life at some point or another, or it will cause us to cause harm in ways that we wouldn't expect. So I started noticing, oh my God, every time I do this, I am so much worse off than I thought. I'm so much more anxious. I am so much more like I'm exhausted. I'm so hungry. I realize I haven't eaten all day. But the more and more and more I did it, the more I was actually starting to get these natural cues outside of my check-ins. But anyway, I started creating with these check-ins. I tried to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, like how dysregulated I gauged I was. And I do this exercise with clients in more detail, but then I slowly started practicing a type of regulation skill. I had distraction skills, I had sensory seeking or avoidance skills, I had somatic tools, I had mindfulness, more in the brain, like visualization skills. I found it really to be helpful to challenge myself to try a new skill. And I would try a skill at different kind of levels of dysregulation. Some things really only helped me when I was already somewhat regulated. And some things made me worse when I was very dysregulated. I wanted to learn to not throw out a skill just because when I tried it, it didn't work for me. I wanted to learn to figure out how to make that tool work for me. And this isn't me saying that every single tool is going to work for every single body, but I am saying that for the most part, I think a lot of us toss regulation tools that we hear in therapy or in the mental health world aside because it doesn't always work for us. But instead, we have to figure out when it works for us. We have to understand the pattern of why did it work one time but not the other, and learning what tools to use based off of how dysregulated we are, based off the setting that we're in. I tried to take tools, make them work for me instead of giving up the first time they didn't work. And that really changed things. The amount of regulation, basically figuring out that regulation wasn't just a one size fit all. It wasn't, oh, take a deep breath like everyone tells you to. Breathing exercise only works for me when I'm at a certain level of dysregulated. If I'm a 10 out of 10, screaming, crying, throwing up, full meltdown, doing a breathing exercise is not going to help me. It's going to make me very angry. So I can't use it then, but that doesn't mean that breathing isn't effective for me. That's my point. So this is part of like where somatic work started to benefit me. I started really exploring, looking online, seeing how other people used somatic work to work with their body. They are things like squeezing your body or getting a hug from somebody else. The actual squeeze can regulate your system. Things like shaking your body like a dog. There's vagal nerve stimulation where you could literally hum to try to make yourself feel more regulated. So many things naturally regulate the body that we don't know about or haven't tried before. And it doesn't require us getting into our mind where things maybe are very anxious or our mind is not being kind to us and we have to try to control what we're thinking. That doesn't work well for me. If I'm spiraling, I don't want to be in my mind, but I do need to find a way to calm my body down. I'm a big believer that if my mind is overwhelmed, then I need to focus on my body, what I have more control in. And if my body is overwhelmed, maybe I'm in pain or I'm shaky and my heart is racing. Typically doing more mind work like visualizations might actually work better for me. I like to enter the part of my body that I have more control over in that moment to help regulate the other part. We are one system. We are connected. And so it's learning how to access the part of you that you have the most control over and regulate in that way so it can send the signals to calm down the part of you that feels out of control. I really love shaking. I actually got a vibration plate to help the shaking. If I just step on my vibration plate for like 30 seconds, I can feel so much more regulated. If I'm having anxiety, I do that. Sometimes I just start my day like that. And it forces me to really like look at my body. Technically, like fidgets and using a fidget toy is a somatic regulation tool. Any type of repeating movement, so stimming, like hand flapping or spinning or technically running or whatever, any type of repeated movement over time also sends regulation signals to the body. But really, when I'm talking about somatics, the things that have helped me the most is like long body scans in the beginning. The more dysregulated and dissociated you are, the longer you really need to have a body scan. I'm talking 10, 15 minutes to start to understand what's happening in your body. Now my body scans are like 30 seconds, 15 seconds, because I know what cues I'm looking for and I have a better connection with my body. My dissociation level is much lower overall. Or if you're having a big emotion, you're really, really sad. Instead of talking directly about the thing that made you sad, sometimes I try to find the sensation in my body and just breathe into it, wiggle my body around, see if I can make the physical sensation feel better. If I've got tightness in my shoulders because I'm so angry and I'm holding all this tension, sometimes physically rocking my shoulders back, stretching my body out can actually improve the anger. So I try to move into whatever is happening in the body, create what I can to make that physical sensation feel better. If there's a tightness in my chest, honestly, stretching is usually a great go to option. If you're not sure what to do when you feel that sensation, try to stretch out that zone. Try to breathe a big amount of air into your belly if you feel like a sinking in your tummy. Try to stretch your chest out if you feel it in your chest. There's all these different things you can do to physically change the sensation that's paired with the emotion. So, with all of this being said, I actually think it's a good time to transition into our final segment, which is our call to action. Usually, when I do my call to action segment, I ask if there is any part of the episode that resonates with you. I try to encourage you to take a small step towards XYZ. So today that might be reconnecting with your body. It might be trying a grounding exercise, going for a walk and focusing on what flowers, noticing the sound of the bees buzzing by. Or it might just be like pausing in this moment to notice your breath, pay attention to where you feel the air move in your body. There's a lot of really cool ways you can play around with any type of sensation in your body and learn around somatics in that way. I would like to encourage you today to try an exercise with me. Like I mentioned earlier, a grounding exercise includes, for the most part, includes our five senses. And so if to be dissociated is to be disconnected from these senses, that's one of the quick ways for me to get back in it, is to really focus on my five senses. Now, every one of your senses, if you ever forget them, put your hand on your face. You'll touch your face. That's one of them. You'll feel your face. You'll probably touch your eyes. That's your sight. You'll touch your nose. That's your smell. You touch your lips. And if you're lucky enough to go all the way to the side, you might even feel your ears and get the reminder for hearing too. So we're going to focus on all of these. What I want you to do is with every question that I ask, I want you to internally describe what it is that you see, you hear, you smell, whatever it is, as if you are writing a book. I want you to be very vivid and very detailed. All we're going to do is one for each sense. So we will go ahead and get started with something you can see. Now, this can be anything. It can be the mouse of the computer in front of you. It could be a picture in a frame hanging on your wall. It doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to ask yourself, what colors do you see? Is it one color? Is it multiple? Name each of them. What texture would this item be? Would it be smooth? Would it be soft or fluffy? Would it be rough? Would it be hard? Is it malleable? How big is it? Could it fit in the palm of your hand? Could it be held at all? How heavy do you think it is? And then I want you to find something you can smell. You're welcome to pause this for just a second. It can be a candle, an essential oil. It can be perfume. If you really can't find anything, that's okay. Oftentimes our clothes have a scent to it, either from our body or from a perfume or cologne we wear, from the detergent on our clothes. So find something and bring it up and give it a long smell. And I want you to describe it. Is the smell pleasant? Does it smell fruity or flowery? Does the smell make you feel relaxed? Is it lavender? Is it jasmine? If it is something in your body odor, does it make you think you need to shower? Does it remind you of something else entirely? Try to give as much detail to whatever it is that you're smelling, even if it's stinky. And then we're going to move into taste. If you have a water nearby or a drink nearby, a tea, if you have a piece of candy you can pop in your mouth, or a cough drop, or literally anything. We don't normally taste what our mouth tastes like because we're not thinking about it. But I want you to think about what your mouth currently tastes like, whether you have something in it like water or a snack, or if it's just your mouth closed. Sometimes our mouth has a taste. It can be metallic, or it can taste like something we ate recently. Maybe it's a sign we need to brush our teeth. It doesn't matter, but I want you to describe it. If you take a sip of tea, what flavors come up? What temperature is it? If you take a sip of water, can you taste the minerals? Does it taste really fresh? And then we're gonna move to sound. I want you to focus on one thing you can hear. And technically it could be the sound of my voice. It could be the wind going by outside out your window, maybe the birds chirping. It could be the sound of your pet breathing next to you. It could be the sound of cars zooming by. Think about how loud it is, how soft. Is the voice gentle or is the sound abrupt? Think about how the sound makes you feel. Is it calming? Is it soothing? Is it irritating? And we're going to move to touch. And touch is great because there's always something nearby, right? There's our skin, there's our nails, there's our clothes, there's the tables that we're near, there's the floor underneath our feet. Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it rough? Does it feel hot or cold? Does it feel room temp? Is it scratchy? Is it bendable? We're gonna go ahead and come back into the present moment. If you had your eyes closed during this exercise at any point, you can flutter your eyes open. If your eyes are already open, you can give your body a little bit of a stretch. Now is a good moment to check in and just gauge how you're feeling. Do you feel more relaxed? Do you feel more present? Are you noticing any cues that your body's sending to you, like hunger or sleepiness, or maybe an emotion like anger, frustration, or joy? See if you notice a cue that you didn't notice before the exercise. See if you feel better or worse. And take that information, put it in your pocket, maybe try this exercise again on your own in the future. You can even do a little before check-in and an after check-in and just see how you're feeling. This isn't the only way that we can work on our mental health. And if you feel like you are in a deep state of dissociation, I really encourage you to reach out to a professional. I think working with someone who is neurodiverse informed is incredibly important when we're a part of the neurodiverse community. I know it's hard, but we exist. You're welcome to reach out and connect with me should you wish to work together. I would just really encourage you to understand that your mental health is worth taking time for. There's no shame in needing support and help. I see a therapist, and having a good support system is wonderful, but talking about the hard things should be done with a professional. Our friends are not trained to handle dissociation and mental health concerns, so turn your attention to the professionals when it's time to. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it, subscribe, leave a comment or a review, or send it to someone who might benefit from the psychoeducation, or just need a little reminder that they are not alone. If you are interested in my coaching or therapy services, you can reach out to me directly and connect with me at theatypicalview.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and I hope we can stay connected.